This is DawgNation's Countdown to Signing Day, brought to you by Kroger.
And today's signing day coverage is all about the Georgia DBs. Those who are already committed. We've talked about defensive linemen, we've talked about the wide receivers, but it's time to talk about what arguably is probably Kirby Smart's favorite position group, and also I imagine the one that he's probably the most hard on. So why don't we remind you who we've got in the 2025 class in terms of DBs. And it all starts with Todd Robinson, who is the highest rated DB out of this entire class, which is still mind-blowing to me considering the fact that he's not playing DB at the moment. So obviously somebody has to see a lot in him for him to be this high.
It's kind of crazy. You know, Todd would probably be rated a lot higher if he just played DB the whole game. And I don't think he played any DB against Carrollton last week because they needed him so much on the offensive side. But you know, Todd will be basically, Georgia sees him as a nickel or as a safety type guy. And I'm going to just go ahead and make a prediction, Kaylee, that all those pass concepts he learned at Valdosta High, being a quarterback for the past 4 years, are going to benefit him playing a ranging, athletic, physical safety in Athens, because he's going to know what those windows look like and feel like, and he's going to know what that quarterback is thinking a lot of chances.
All right, so we've also got the 4-star DB, Jonte Gilbert, out of Atlanta, as well as the 4-star safety, Jalen Morgan, out of Rockville, Tennessee. Now, remember, the cornerback, Dominic Kelly, out of Bradenton, Florida, he was one that recently just reclassified, so he was just added to the class of 2025 last week, and then Rayshawn Dinkins was the flip from Georgia Tech.
Correct.
But I feel like the DBs is somebody that we maybe haven't covered enough this season. So out of the 4 that we just gave, who are the 2 that DawgNation should keep their eyes on?
Well, that's a good question, Kaylee, because like this is not a typical Kirby Smart class. And what I mean by that is, let's rewind 1 year ago. And last year, I think Georgia had the #1 corner, the #1 safety. They had DeMello Jones. I think they had 4 top 100 DBs in the class a year ago. And corner, safety, corner, safety. And so like this year, they just don't have those same amount of guys. Andre Evans was another corner. They didn't really specify the corner. If you look at that graphic right there, pulling it up, there's really only 2 guys that are even going to, I think, maybe try to be started out at corner. One of those is Jonte Gilbert, because Georgia had to make sure he could play corner, former Ohio State commit. And then Dominic Kelly, the reclassified 2026. And now his rankings would be a lot higher. He was like a top 150 overall prospect in the 2026 cycle, but he moved up, reclassified a year. This is the one rare Georgia DB class that doesn't have that 5-star, Kaylee, but they've got 2 guys. I think the 2 guys that we should probably focus on here is the ones that kind of the bookends of the class. #1 is Todd Robinson, of course. We've talked about him a lot. And then the second one was Rayshawn Dinkins, the Georgia Tech flip. Because you guys have heard me, but basically, write haikus and love letters basically to Rayshawn Dinkins. I'm just such a big fan of his game and the way he plays the game. He plays both sides of the ball, very physical. His defensive coordinator, LeBrandon Hudson, allows him to apply coverage or apply pressure from the back end, and he can be a coordinator on the field for his defense. And those are the type of guys, you see those ball skills, you see that athleticism. Those are the type of players that thrive in Georgia. You mix in the physicality, you mix in his nose for the ball, and I think the comp of Javon Bullard certainly applies there.
I don't think that not having a 5-star DB in this class is something DawgNation should be too concerned about, just because for a few reasons. #1, this is the modern age of college football where every player that you see on there is going to be paid, but you can't pay a bunch of 5-stars. You're going to run out of money, and so I think you have to go based on need, and this class needed a really high-paid wide receiver. They're always going to bring in a top-rated linebacker, but as you mentioned from last year's class, they signed a bunch of the top-rated 5-star guys, so maybe there isn't this big of a need to go out and get the guy, especially when you know how well Georgia develops guys on the defensive side of the ball. So it doesn't really scare me that there isn't one big 5-star guy, because you just got Ellis Robinson, you just got KJ Bolden, and you needed to spread that money out elsewhere, and plus you got to just trust in the coaching staff to be able to develop it. I mean, that's 5 4-stars on the board, which for Georgia may not be the norm, but any other school would be begging for that.
Kaylee, I'm of the belief that when you have 5-star linemen up front, it makes your 4-star DBs play like 5-star DBs. And folks, you just need to buckle in. When this crop of defensive linemen are sophomores, that's when Ellis and KJ and DeMello and Andre will be juniors in Athens. And good luck, SEC opponents. Good luck, playoff opponents, when you have to deal with all those guys. And, you know, Georgia's going to probably, you'll look next year, they'll have a wide berth of 5-star DBs that will come back. So when those defensive linemen are juniors, they'll have a bunch of sophomore, former 5-star DBs. And Georgia likes to do it in waves. And, Kaylee, you were right. Georgia is spreading the money around the front 7. Guys like Elijah Griffin, guys like Zayden Walker, Isaiah Gibson.
Did you almost just say someone that you weren't supposed to say?
I'm not supposed to say that name yet, Kaylee. That's more to come.
I thought that's where you were going with this. All right, so in just a second, we will review the UMass visitors list. But first, we want to remind you that here, Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Listen, Thanksgiving. Well, I guess you still have time to do it tomorrow, maybe some last-minute things. Make sure to check out your local Kroger or visit Kroger.com. You can still use that Kroger.com/Thanksgiving to view recipes and inspiration to help with your feast, including that calculator I told you guys about that helps you plan what size turkey you will need for your guests, which comes with prep and cook time. Actually recommended it to a friend of mine who used that. He's never made a turkey before, so super proud of them for that, and it was cool that I got to recommend that